On September 25, 2025, the American church lost one of its most significant and, let's be honest, polarizing voices, Dr. Voddie Baucham. He passed away at the age of 56. So to really understand his impact, we're going to take a look back at the life of this pastor, author, and cultural critic. We're going to try to figure out who he was, what he believed, and why his message just resonated so powerfully with so many people. You see, to his countless supporters, he was an absolute warrior for biblical truth. They saw him as a man who just refused to bend his convictions, especially in a world that, to them, seemed to demand constant compromise. He famously called himself a fire-breathing, five-point Calvinist, a nod to a theological system that really emphasizes God's total sovereignty. But for his critics, well, that same fiery, uncompromising stance often created more heat than light, They felt it deep into the very fault lines he was trying to expose. So, to get how he became such a figure, we really have to start at the beginning. Baucham's journey to becoming this global Christian leader was anything but predictable. Seriously. It all started in a non-Christian single-parent home in one of LA's toughest neighborhoods. I mean, his path was just remarkable. Growing up in the projects of South Central LA, his life completely changed when he moved in with his uncle, a super disciplined retired Marine. Then, just a few years later as a college freshman, a campus minister shares the gospel with him, and boom, his life takes a totally new direction. Growing up without a father was a huge part of his story. And this moment, right here, holding his newborn daughter for the first time, it just crystallized all that pain and turned it into a central theme that would drive his ministry for the next 30 years. Okay, so what was his message? Well, Baucham's teaching really stood on two main pillars: the critical role of the family, especially fathers, and this relentless drive to apply a biblical worldview to culture. Let's break down what that looked like, starting with the family. This is what he became really well known for, his teaching on biblical fatherhood, which he powerfully summed up with these four key roles. For him, the absence of fathers fulfilling these jobs was the root cause of so many of society's problems. His other huge passion was what he called cultural apologetics. Now, for Baucham, this wasn't some abstract academic idea, not at all. It meant taking the Bible and applying it directly, unflinchingly, to the most complex and controversial issues we face today. And that approach, applying the Bible directly to culture, well, it led him straight into the heart of America's culture wars. And this is where he became one of evangelicalism's most prominent and, for many, most controversial figures. His best-selling book, Fault Lines, was like a lightning rod. It became an instant flashpoint in this explosive debate over critical race theory, social justice, and what their place was, if any, inside the church. And this is where you can really see the deep divide. Baucham saw a dangerous, unbiblical ideology creeping into the church, but his detractors, they argued that he totally oversimplified a complex movement and wasn't fairly representing those he disagreed with. So with his passing, how will this complex and really consequential figure be remembered? Well, his legacy, a lot like his life, is multifaceted, and for many, deeply personal. First and foremost, he'll be remembered as a devoted family man. He didn't just preach about family. He and his wife Bridget raised 9 children, adopting 7 of them. They really lived out the very principles he championed from the pulpit. And of course, his public legacy is just as expansive. A global educator in Zambia, a best-selling author in the US, and a cultural warrior who just refused to soften his convictions, no matter what it cost him. But when Baucham himself was asked how he wanted to be remembered, his answer cut right through all the complexity, all the controversy, and all the cultural debate. It was simple, and it was focused entirely on his faith. So the crucial point here isn't to deliver some final verdict on Voddie Baucham, but to really understand his impact. His life and his work, they force us to grapple with a vital question. What is the role of these uncompromising figures, and how do they ultimately shape our most important conversations?